Hunters. Hunters. What's going on? It's your turn, Solar 3.0 builds. Let's have a little chat. The thing about Solar Hunter is that it is already good on its own without any exotics. It's good synergies with its aspects and fragments. Gunpowder Gamble is super fun and pretty solid damage-wise. And I don't think hunters really have an exotic that pushes them above and beyond like warlocks do in Starfire Protocol, something like that. Their base kit is just pretty good, and their exotics simply enhance what they already have, but not exactly to the degree that warlocks and titans get, at least in more endgame stuff. They have a pretty high floor like titans do, but their ceiling, in my opinion anyway, is not as high. When I first started investigating builds for hunters, I asked a few of my friends what they were using. And one thing that came up a lot was Star Eater scales with Blade Barrage. And I was going to try to talk about this at length, but there isn't anything to really discuss. The reason why it's good is because Blade Barrage got buffed, and it has been discovered that Blade Barrage plus a maxed out Star Eater scales will do the most damage of any super in the game. The problem is that this isn't a build. This is equipping things. We are taking a super, and then we are making it deal more damage from an exotic. There's no synergies to work around. There's no stat discussion. There's no mod discussion. It's just put these two things on. And that's not really in the spirit of what I want these videos to be. We're going to do this video a little backwards and start with looking at all potential exotics and what we could do to build off of them. So Celestial Nighthawk, kind of the same deal as Star Eaters. It changes your super, but there's not really a build here. The same goes for Shards of Galanor, gives you super energy on cast, but again, there's no build. It's just equip and you go. Our moment-to-moment gameplay doesn't really get shifted as a result. We just use our super more often, or our super is a little bit different, or it deals a bit more damage. What exotics could we actually make a build around? We have Young Ahamkara Spine, Caliban's Hand, new exotic, Athrus's Embrace, which might as well be a new exotic to a lot of people, Ophidia, Sixth Coyote, Bombardiers. We also have Assassin's Cowl and Dragon's Shadow as alternates. These were mentioned a lot by viewers in my stream, so I did want to mention them. A lot to work with here. All of these exotics have the potential to be good or lead to a successful build within Solar 3.0, but I don't think anything is on the level of, let's say, again, Starfire Protocol for Warlocks, for example. For those looking to keep things simple, getting an extra charge on an ability, Ophidia or Sixth Coyote, gonna be easy picks. You can just sort of play a regular playstyle within Solar and have these boost your ability to do certain things more often or allow you to have a backup. Did you miss a knife? Well, you got two of them. Did you not dodge close enough to an enemy? You got two of them. I know someone posted a build that they really enjoyed using on Reddit, and it is linked in the description, using Ophidia. It's more of a support-based build. Athrus's Embrace is something that I think a good chunk of people are going to continue to stay away from because of weighted knife and the feeling of needing to hit consistent crits. The fear of missing this knife throw is going to scare a lot of people away from it, but you can build around it. Bombardiers are pretty neat now that the solar grenade on dodge gives a scorch effect, and we can use that to recharge our dodge with a fragment, but I don't think this dramatically pushes Hunter to the next level. The explosion will end up killing a lot of things outright in lower end content, meaning we're gonna lose the scorch part of the bomb, and we're gonna need to make that up somewhere else. The new exotic Caliban's Hand seems fine, but I wasn't blown away by it. I built around Ignite Effects and Ember of Torches to be able to chain my knives together. Played around on Leviathan, and it was fine. It was fine. A problem I had was that the secondary explosion from the proximity knife tended to kill stuff that was immediately surrounding the enemy that I hit with the knife. So the Ignite just exploded into nothing. When I actually killed stuff with the Ignite, it was fine. But I also felt that GPG was enough for my personal needs. Also, the description in-game is wrong. You need direct impact kills to trigger the Ignite, And the knife itself needs to kill, not the secondary explosion. Now, it's not an impossible feat to get another knife. Gambler's dodge, try again. But if you miss a crit, you're probably not going to get a kill unless it's on a completely garbage enemy. In higher end content, I imagine you're going to need to severely weaken a target before hitting them with the knife for the ignite proc. Again, not an impossible task, but maybe not as smooth of an experience compared to other builds. This exotic did not interest me a ton when I messed around with it, but maybe I didn't give enough time, as I know a lot of people do enjoy using it. I had a couple of neutral exotics being mentioned as well, Assassin's Cowl and Dragon's Shadow. Assassin's Cowl is much more of a defensive option. It doesn't really do a ton for your build, nor does it proc any sort of restoration effects. Dragon's Shadow has always been a fine choice, but it doesn't directly contribute to any sort of solar build. It's more weapon-based, although you can get a big chunk of mobility from the actual effect of the exotic. The build I'm going to showcase today uses an exotic that I have literally never used outside of exotic tier lists, Young Ahamkara's Spine. In case you don't remember, Bungie changed trip mines back to their original functionality a while ago, where they can, again, stick to targets directly, and we're going to be using this as a sticky grenade, essentially, to combo out. You can totally stick it to walls and surfaces and all that if you want to, but planting these kinds of grenades in good spots is tougher than just throwing any other grenade. Young Ahamkara's increases the blast radius on the grenade, along with the timer, which I don't think is as relevant, and ability damage reduces the cooldown. Trip Mine also scorches any targets hit. Let's talk aspects and fragments first, and then we'll go into stats. For an ability-focused build, it is tough to beat Gunpowder Gamble and knock 'em down. I'm not crazy about On Your Mark in general. It's fine for team-based stuff, and I'm sure you can get really high uptime on it, but to really maximize your damage output, GPG is just too good, and it's too fun. Although I will say that you can live without it if you really want to use On Your Mark for team-based play, not to mention On Your Mark gets you 3 fragment slots. Unfortunately, GPG and Knock 'em Down leaves us with 3 total fragment slots. And the fragments we're picking definitely aren't the most exciting, but they are what will allow us to really maximize this specific build's combo. Solace, Singeing, and Torches. Let's break down this initial setup. Torches is here to keep us radiant and to get our melee cooldown back on kill. This works via Knock 'em Down, giving us our melee back when we kill while we are radiant. Torches makes us radiant on powered melee attacks, so Torches triggers before the kill happens because we need to hit the target first, and then killing it instantly restores our melee. This feeds us grenade energy via Young Ahamkara's to then spam trip mines, as you don't really need that many kills to get your trip mine back. I think this fragment is basically good everywhere. It is the fuel for our combo. Singeing is for regeneration of our class ability through Scorches. We're going to be scorching a lot with Knife Trick and Trip Mines. Keeping our class ability ready means more opportunities to proc Classy Restoration, keeping us alive at least during Season of the Haunted. It also allows us to recharge our melee in an instant in case we miss a knife or don't kill a target through the use of Gambler's Dodge. Solace is here to boost restoration and radiant durations. Now, in lower level content, I can see this being not very important because ideally we're going to just be radiant all of the time through torches and you can just refresh it whenever. Classy Restoration is nice as well, but you're probably not going to need more than a few seconds to get your health back, so you won't need this duration increase that badly compared to, say, a solo dungeon experience. Empyrean was recently unlocked, which can extend the duration of these effects, which is also plenty viable, probably even more viable. What about a more Ignite-focused setup? We have Eruption, Blistering, and Char getting us a bigger radius on the Ignite, scorches targets hit by the Ignite, and those killed by the Ignite give us grenade energy, getting us the Trip Mine grenade back. However, what I didn't like about this setup is that the combo is finite. You throw a Trip Mine, you get GPG loaded, you throw that, you shoot it, let's say you get the Trip Mine back, that's cool, you throw that. But then you're stuck waiting for GPG to get off cooldown, You do have your knives to fall back on. I'd probably go with weighted for opportunities to get it back instantly, combined with your gambler's dodge. But if you whiff with that too much, eventually you're going to hit a point where you're waiting for some sort of cooldown in order to get back into the groove of things. Maybe your trip mine grenade comes up while you have GPG up. Now you're not going to benefit from that grenade energy. The other two classes have spoiled me in this way. They can basically go infinite, and that's kind of what I'm trying to replicate here. Now, if we throw On Your Mark into the mix, we now get 2 more fragment slots if we remove GPG. Knock 'em down is the thing refreshing our knives when combined with torches, which translates into grenade energy on kills via young Ahamkaras. So now we can bring in the 3 ignite-focused fragments, torches for the constant knives, and then you can bring in singeing for the constant class ability, and now we just have the best of both worlds, mostly. The only issue is that we lose GPG, and GPG is just really fun. It's super fun to use, and it's pretty good. Also, without GPG, what are we even really igniting anymore? You could throw a grenade and some knives at a target and have it ignite, sure, but we're not really going to chain anything together in this way. And if we kill the target before they can ignite, which again, likely to happen in lower level content, there's not really much of a point. You'd have to grenade and knife a target, dodge to get the knife back, kill some enemies with it to get the grenade and the knife back, go back to the main big target, hit them again. On paper, it sounds fine, but if you don't have a big target, then it feels like we have all of this ignite stuff for nothing because we're not really proccing it on anything. And again, GPG is really fun. Like, who's not using GPG? Plenty of tweaking you can do here, though. Feel free to experiment. This is just one setup of many potential setups. If I was going to focus on Ignite, I'd rather just focus all of my efforts into maximizing my GPGs, rotate out of young Ahamkaras, and just have a mix of gunplay and GPG. There's nothing wrong with having a hybrid build. You don't need to go infinite with your abilities. It's just what I wanted to focus on in this particular build. Okay, so stats. We generate grenade energy through grenade hits with trip mine and knife hits. So that's our discipline. We generate melee energy through knife kills and dodges. So that's our strength, which means technically speaking, we could ignore strength and discipline almost completely with optimal play. Mobility is still very much on the table, as is recovery and resilience. Considering where you're going to be using this build, I don't think resilience is as needed unless you're doing like solo dungeon or something. Recovery will be nice though, although you can let Classy Restoration do a lot of the work in Season of the Haunted if you wanted to go light on recovery, at least for now. This brings us to mods. Here's the thing. This build is basically self-sustaining already. You don't really need Charged with Light or Well mods to keep things moving. Anything you choose to include is just a bonus. Energy converter, let's get to those supers faster. Stack a bunch of Charged with Light mods, supercharged, all that stuff. You're going to be throwing a ton of grenades, and the only thing that's going to slow you down is how quickly you can stack Charged with Light. You could throw on firepower too, stacking even more grenade energy. Heavy-handed is a big investment to make and could help limit the damage from missed knives, but we have our dodge, and it's probably going to be on a pretty low cooldown, so you can live without this. Alternatively, stacking Bountiful Wells and Elemental Ordnance or Melee Well Maker is yet again an option. Create a bunch of wells, ability energy for everyone. You could also combine that with Elemental Charge, all that good stuff. Why do I like this build? I like it as a more casual build. It's something for low and mid-tier content, seasonal stuff, things basically up to around legendary difficulty. Do I love it like I love Titan and Warlock? Not the same amount, no. But GPG is still really fun to use in every situation, and being able to just knife trick everything constantly, also very enjoyable. The best part is that hunters do have a build that lets them go infinite, and if you do ever reach a time where you have everything on cooldown, chances are that your dodge is on a pretty short timer, so you won't need to wait too long to get back into the groove of things. I did some runs of Master Warden of Nothing to do a little high-level testing, which wasn't the most ideal because, one, there's only a couple of spots with a large amount of enemies, and two, it had solar burn. So This isn't the normal damage of this build, it's 25% more, and I was about 15 levels under. Overall, was not very impressed by anything that I tried. Young Ahamkara's spine was fine, but it ultimately relies on you being able to take the lead when it comes to killing, which means you need to be able to hit knives to fuel grenade energy. If you run with Knife Trick, you need to be close to enemies, and Classy Restoration is the only thing that's going to keep you alive long enough to be able to even do that. In GM, it might not be strong enough to save you. It's also not reasonable to ask your teammates to slow down so that you can get in the fray and do all of the killing. If you're naturally able to kill more stuff than your teammates, then this build can be moderately successful. The final run that I did, I told my teammates to, let me take the lead a little bit, and I got a few more chain kills off at times. But trying to slowly plink down an enemy to the point where you can just knife it is kind of tedious, when I could spend less effort just killing it and moving on. Plus, then if someone yoinks your kill, you throw and you miss a knife at the exact moment that they shoot it, now you gotta restart the whole process. It's a whole deal. More enemy-dense strikes might fare a bit better. I did some Master Law sectors at about 15 levels under, and those went a little bit better because you have complete control over what is being killed when. This allows you to combo out with more confidence. The arena is also a lot smaller compared to a Nightfall, so you have better control there as well. But in this clip, I was also under the effects of Solar Burn, boosting my damage by 50%. So without this, you're going to be doing 50% less damage, and that's where I'm less confident, based on a very short test that I did in a non-Solar Burn Master Law sector the day before. I could still combo out, but because it was harder to kill stuff with my melee, there was a lot more time in between my abilities. Yes, we can tap some of the enemies next time to get them weaker and then throw our melee, but I'm trying to make this experience as smooth as possible, and having to do something like that where you're stutter stepping in between throwing a melee and shooting your gun, not really that smooth. Caliban's was a bit of a different story. Caliban's almost requires you to tell your teammates to not kill stuff so that you can get a throwing knife kill on something so that everything else explodes. I just said it wasn't reasonable to tell your teammates to not kill stuff. Now they need to not kill stuff even more than the previous build. I ran with GPG in this run, and knives were scarce. I think you kind of need to run without GPG and maximize your fragments if you're going to run Caliban's. Keep in mind, again, I'm doing 25% more solar damage in these clips. Any Warden footage from this video has 25% more solar damage. So this is actually 25% weaker everywhere else. So those knives that I'm throwing that are barely able to one-shot anything, now they're going to be even less likely to do that in other strikes. In a Lost sector that I did, where I was 19 levels under, I could not kill an Acolyte with a headshot from a weighted knife. Now, yeah, you don't need to one-shot all of your enemies 100-0 with a knife to make this build work, but it certainly helps speed things up, and without that ability, it just kind of becomes tedious. Also, I'm not the hugest Trip Mine grenade fan. We're only using it here because that's the grenade that works with young Ahamkaras. It's not really the greatest PvE nade in the world, and it will ultimately rely on sticking your target or finding really good spots for it to be thrown. It's not as accessible as other grenades, but as long as you're somewhat accurate, you should be okay. Worst case scenario is you get a few more knife kills and you just make another one. Solar Hunter is, if anything, consistent. You get a lot of flexibility in your exotic choice and can have a lot of success regardless of which one you pick, but your power gains aren't going to be spiking in any specific direction. Things are going to be pretty consistent across the board. I encourage you to experiment with some of the other exotics to see what will fit your playstyle the most. You might really like something like Athras's Embrace or Bombardiers, and you can totally use them and have success. When it comes to endgame though, I think my exotic choice is going to push more towards supers. So Nighthawk, Star Eaters, and that's because the base kit is already pretty solid on its own, and throwing on any other exotic isn't going to push it to the level that I'd want it to get to. I'd rather just be able to dump a ton of damage into something and then move on with using my kit. Maybe this changes once GMs actually come out. I'm sure I'll test some things And if I'm pleasantly surprised, then my guides will reflect that. Let me know some of the builds you've been using as a hunter thus far in the comments. Interested to see what people are coming up with. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.